Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 276. I was white here, kicked off with e4, and we get into the French defense, and not any unusual sideline, but the main moves, d4, d5, and knight c3, the usual way I play it. You can play knight d2, the Tarrasch, or e5, the advance, or e takes d5, the exchange variation, or even, I've seen even this bishop d3 move played. But knight c3 is my old favorite, and now knight f6 is the top response. There's also bishop b4, the win-hour variation, which leads to lots of exciting and interesting complications, or d takes e4, the Rubinstein, I think that's called, the Rubinstein French. But knight f6 was played, and two main moves here are bishop to g5 or e5. I think I'll play bishop g5 next time. I've been playing the Steinitz a lot. Originally I always played bishop g5 here, and then I decided I didn't like exchanging off the material, and I tried some of these other lines, and this is good too. So you just push the pawn, the knight has to move again, and then you push the pawn to f4. It's important to get in this f4 move to support the center, because this d pawn is going to come under fire very quickly. Right here, in fact. So when you can get in that f4 move, it's a good thing. So you defend the pawn, and then black continues to attack, and you continue to defend. And now the top choice here is exchanging, which is what my opponent played. But there is a very interesting tactical line starting with queen b6, where queen b6, knight to a4, attacking the queen and the pawn, queen to a5 check, attacking the knight and delivering a check, and then you play c3 to defend the knight, and the complications go on from there. But c takes d4 is a good solid way to play. And knight takes. It's the main idea. You don't want to give up the bishop at this point. And then usually here a bishop move is played. I've seen bishop c5 and bishop to, also bishop to b4 has been played against me in this position. But let's see, my opponent here played knight takes d4. Maybe it's a little too soon to be trading that off. This is a good spot for the bishop. And after this, we're out of the opening book. Let's see, was there a choice? No, bishop takes d4. So here there's a choice of knight back to b8, which actually seems like a funny move, but it makes sense to reroute the knight to a more active post on c6, or bishop to c5. My opponent played bishop to b4 here. So bishop c5 is just exchanging off the dark squared bishop. I'm not sure. Well, the engine lists that as one of the ways to play. Okay, so bishop b4. But these are all decent ways to play at this point. We're just out of the opening book and on our own. And somewhere around here I start to get some kind of advantage. Right now I don't have much of an advantage. It's just a normal position. But I continue with the bishop d3, just developing, and then queen h4 check. Maybe this is well, this is okay. It forces my response and kind of opens up this diagonal. But g3 is the only move here, because there's this double attack on the f-pawn and the king, and the only way to meet all those threats is g3. And then the queen dropped back to e7. And you see we're still in the range of normal. I castled here. And black maybe has wasted a move or two, but there's also this diagonal that's been open to my king. So my king's position is a bit airy. There's actually two open diagonals towards my king, which are currently guarded and blocked, but it's a concern throughout the game. So right here, the engine is recommending just taking on c3. Or castling. So my opponent played b6. Yeah, so I guess around here I start to get a significant edge. So my knight is free to move now, and I can play knight b5, threatening to come into this d6 square, which is a real strong move. So castles was recommended by the engine. Castles is recommended, but bishop to c5 was played. I was threatening to just play a3 and kick that bishop anyway. So bishop to c5 was played. Now the engine likes knight d6 check right here. So I wanted to explore this because I didn't think it was good in this position. I played something else. I mean, I thought about this because you always want to look at the checks and captures. But after bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, I've lost a pawn. But I'm hitting over here. So bishop takes g7 was possible. That would have been a very interesting way to play. So I don't lose a pawn. I still have an active position with the two bishops, and I've wrecked my opponent's king side. So now black has a worse king problem than I do. Okay, so that would have been a good way to play. Let's back up here. So let's see if we can visualize that. Knight d6 check. Knight takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, and then queen takes is pretty much forced. I guess the queen could drop back and defend the g-pawn, but after queen takes, then the g-pawn is hanging because of the bishop here. Indirectly striking on that pawn after the exchanges. Okay, kind of thing it's helpful if you can spot that during the game. Instead I played the bishop takes c5, and now knight takes c5 was played, and now I get in my move knight d6. And this is good. Might have been slightly better to take with the queen. Yeah, queen takes c5 is a check, so at least it gains a tempo and puts the queen on a good square. So this was a little helpful for me, and so now actually I have a winning edge, but I don't I don't necessarily prosecute it the best way, but I do okay for a while. So king to d7 was played to get away from the check, and now here's the idea I kept missing: c4. Actually, I wanted to play c4. So I hadn't missed that idea. I was just trying to set it up. Or maybe I was thinking of playing c4 in a different position. But I remember this idea. It's kind of logical. You want to play c4, undermine the center, and open up some lines towards the king. After c4, I thought, let's take a look at this briefly. I thought he was going to take the bishop here. And this is a bit embarrassing, isn't it? This bishop on this diagonal. I thought this was a problem. But rook a to c1, apparently it's not a problem. I guess because there's sort of a pin here. If he ever takes, then this knight takes c4 check is pretty strong. King to e8. How do I get out of this? There's still this kind of pin going on. But just knight to d6 check again wins the bishop. Okay, and if the king goes somewhere else, king to c7, then knight to a5 check, knight to a5. Oh, because the rook is a check as well. So wherever the king goes, if we back up, wherever the king goes after I move the knight, there's going to be a check because when he goes to e8, there's a check from the knight, and then if he goes anywhere else, there's a check from the rook. Pretty interesting. Okay, so I miss this. I miss this idea, but it's a logical idea. Opening up the position when your opponent's king is in the center, your pieces are actively placed. Makes a lot of sense to play a move like c takes, or c4 to try and open that up. And you just have to calculate far enough. I kind of stopped my calculation after the move bishop to a6, and I thought it was dangerous on this diagonal. So instead I played the move queen to e2, kind of reinforcing this diagonal. And I also want to keep his knight out of this square. If the knight drops in there, it can be pretty good for black. And there's some slight edge, but I've given up my best chance. My opponent plays a6, keeping me out of the b5 square. So I bring my rook to c1. I'm still thinking of playing c4 here. And now knight to b7. And once again c4. Okay, so I just keep missing this c4 move. I decided to take the knight. Cancel that. Didn't I take the knight? What did I play? Knight takes... Oh, I decided to take the bishop. And I thought this would still be good because because I have just better pieces, I think, and I'm winning the a6 pawn. That was the other thing I saw. So let's see. My opponent didn't take back right away, but played queen c5 check first. my king up here, and then took with the rook. Rook h takes c8, and then I grabbed the pawn. But grabbing the pawn was not the best move here, once again. So now it's a different pawn move. Now it's the f5 break. Also c4 once again looks interesting. And f5. Yeah, so I just was not very sharp in this game. But, you know, you always want to think about these pawn breaks, especially when your opponent's king is in the center like that. So instead I just grabbed the pawn. Let's look at this f5 idea. We've already looked at c4, but what about f5? Because I didn't really consider this one at all. I thought briefly about c4 at various points, and for some reason didn't think it worked. But f5 I didn't really consider, because it's exposing my king some more as well. But of course it may be more important to attack your opponent's king. So the engine says rook c7. If my opponent just takes, I guess I'm taking back with the bishop, so it's check. So just doubling the rooks on the c file, and then what's the idea here? F takes e6. F takes e6. And I have a way to penetrate here. Although now the engine likes bishop takes. And well, I've just got another open line for my rook, so this has got to be good for me. Okay, so f5 would have been the way to play there. I took immediately. And, you know, I still have a winning edge here probably, but not playing the most precise moves. And this eventually this comes back to haunt me. So rook c7, very logical, unpinning the knight and defending. Bishop to b5 check. King goes to e7 and a4. So just cementing my bishop on this square. And I thought I was in good shape here. So my opponent plays d4, opening up a diagonal towards my king. And I went queen f3, getting on the diagonal here before my opponent does. Rook to d8, and rook f to d1. So I want to stop this pawn from advancing and maybe messing up things on my queen side here. Queen to b4, hitting this pawn. And now I defend the b pawn, and once again f5 is the move here. So it's just playing a little too cautiously here. Let's check out f5 in this situation. f5, queen takes b2, and f takes e6. King takes. Getting a little bit dicey, but these pawns are all protected. And then do I have a queen g4 check or bishop to c6? Look like strong moves. Bishop c6, queen to c3. Okay, opposing my queen. And now queen g4 check. King back to e7. Queen h4 check. My bishop is hanging meanwhile, so you have to take that into account. Queen h4 check. King to f8. And then bishop takes b7. Okay, so the bishop escapes. And, oh, if he takes back, this rook is hanging. So he's just losing a piece there. The knight was defending the rook, so bishop takes. And if he takes back, I'm taking the rook, so he probably needs to move the rook. And then I can save my bishop. And I'm just a piece up. Okay, so that was kind of a long sequence, but in principle, so even if you can't calculate all of that due to time pressure or being in a blitz game or whatever, it's just very logical to look for these pawn breaks, especially when your opponent's king is exposed like that. So I probably should have just played that anyway, even without time to calculate it. But anyway, held on to my pawn, thinking I had a winning endgame here. And the game continues. I chase his rook around a bit and pick up another pawn. Let's see, he had a way to deal with this, so it was maybe a little better. Knight to c5. She had a way to deal with this a little better. Knight to c5, hitting my queen. And then where does the queen go? Back to f3. And then move the rook back to d8. So that would have been a way to hold on to things. This pawn is now defended. Yeah, I didn't quite spot that. I was thinking the bishop here was interrupting the queen's defense of the pawn, and I was going to win it, but this knight move chases the queen away, and black gets to hold on to the pawn. Okay, so rook dc5 was played, and now I do get to pick up a second pawn. Queen to a3, hitting my rook. So I double the rooks, and now knight a5. And I was thinking of doing something here. Once again, f5 with the breakthrough, or queen a8. Now this is another move you got to keep your eye on. Queen a8, with the idea of sneaking into the d8 square, which would be a checkmate. So that's pretty strong. Two strong moves there: f5, queen a8, even rook d8. Okay, I played none of those. Queen d3, and then I took back with the pawn here, leaving me with kind of a messed up structure. I think rook takes c4 is still winning. So after I take with the pawn, we get into a situation where, well, I'm 2 pawns up, but my pawns are all discombobulated. Plus, I probably shouldn't have given up or allowed the queen trade. If I were to just take with the rook here, I thought rook takes would force me to take with the queen. Oh, queen d8 checkmate. Yeah, so there's no time. He's got to put something back on the 8th rank. And then I could come into d6 check. Yeah, this looks really good for white once again. Okay, so not playing my best chess here. I took with the pawn, and after the trade of queens, and my last chance to maintain an advantage is to actually take back with the pawn here. After I take with the rook, suddenly it's an even game, and it very quickly turns into a draw, because black can just scoop up all these loose pawns over here, and I can grab black's loose pawn too, but after all the loose pawns are taken off, we're left with this structure, and there's just nothing going on here. It's pretty much a dead draw. So I offered to draw in this position, and that's how the game ended. So anyway, it's a game of missed chances. Keep your eye out on those for those pawn breaks, and also those sneaky moves like queen in the corner. It's easy to miss those, so if you can stay alert and try and spot those both for you and for your opponent, you'll play better than me. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed that. See you again soon. Bye.